Hello and welcome to the left wing. Well, that is another World Cup over for Ireland, beaten again at the quarter-final stage, 24 points to 28 by New Zealand here at the Stade de France tonight. Lads, we were just down at the press conference, the mix zone. There were tears, heartbreak, utter disappointment.
Yeah, and a group of players who fronted up, and coaches who fronted up. I think everyone who came into the mix zone impressed me in terms of the way they dealt with this defeat. They're obviously broken. I think there's a bit of anger with themselves as well as disappointment. I think they know they left that behind them to a degree. They were beaten by the better team on the night, an All Blacks team. We were going through them earlier, Cian, like how many of them had a career best performance. I thought Sam Kane was magnificent, their back row, Artie Savea. But I think a lot of those Irish players will leave here tonight and reflect on a night where they didn't make the best of it for themselves. They didn't perform to the best of their abilities, and even doing that, when they were beaten on the ground, beaten in the air, beaten out of touch and beaten in the scrum, they were still able to go through 37 phases on the All Blacks line at the end. They were still held up over the line. They missed a kick that if they had, and it wasn't an easy kick by any means, but if they'd kicked it, then they might have been able to work a drop goal. At the same end that Sexton nailed his drop goal, it was a very different quarter-final exit to the last since 1991. It's the closest they've come, and there's some solace in that, and they did perform in various areas, but I don't think they got up to the levels that they can get to, and that's what's going to haunt them once they leave this behind.
It is going to haunt them.
Yeah, I just don't think you can give a team like the All Blacks a 13-0 head start. Ireland did very well to claw it back, but you're always chasing your tail a little bit. And just some of the key pillars, once again, that they pride themselves on. I mean, the line-out wasn't great again. The scrum had major issues, albeit that Andy Farrell and Paul O'Connell afterwards seemed to be really annoyed, I would say, by some of the Wayne Barnes' interpretation.
Andrew was furious on the pitch.
And you could see that in Andrew Porter as well. But look, that's an issue. The All Blacks went after him and they got joy out of it. In the first test last year, Ireland struggled at the scrum as well, but they figured it out, and they spoke about being able to adapt in the moment and not waiting for after the game to look at clips and videos and say, I should have done this better. And it happened again tonight on the biggest stage of all, so that is deeply, deeply frustrating. I thought the breakdown, where the one big area, not the one big area, but a particular big area that Joe Schmidt like changed Irish rugby in, and we spoke about it this week, and New Zealand absolutely dominated Ireland at the breakdown. They slowed down their ball, they made it dirty. Again, I thought a few interpretations, I have to say, of Wayne Barnes' officiating around I thought were questionable, to say the least. I would qualify that with it absolutely wasn't the reason Ireland lost the game, but there was a couple of decisions where it seemed to me like the All Blacks were just lying on the wrong side and didn't get penalised. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. You have to adapt to it. It's absolutely not the reason they lost, but you got to be more accurate. Too many times ball carriers were isolated, like just Artie Surveyor had a field day at the breakdown, and that is really disappointing because that's stuff that's in Ireland's control. We've spoken about over the last few years how, Paul O'Connell's influence on the breakdown, the speed of Ireland's ball, and when that doesn't happen, they struggle. And look, they clawed themselves back in, they scored some really well worked tries, but ultimately they left themselves too much to do at the end, and it is like this feels like probably the most gutting of all. I mean, they didn't show up in 2019. That was very different. Whereas tonight they leave with huge regrets that everything that they've done over the last couple of years still stands to them. That's all of a sudden not gone. But they've left a massive opportunity behind them. Andy Farrell spoke about afterwards that this is the end of an era. You've Johnny Sexton gone. He revealed that Keith Earls is going to be gone. The team manager, Mick Carney. I mean, there's another couple of old players who are at the wrong side of their 30s, you'd say, as well. So it's going to be a challenging period, and it just feels like when you have a fit and firing Johnny Sexton, everything was there for Ireland to deliver, and they didn't.
Yeah, and obviously Johnny came into the press conference afterwards, got it quite emotional. He went over, got his son Luke out of the stand afterwards, and he was hugging him and all the rest. But here's what Johnny had to say in the press conference after.
Said the last 6 weeks it's been incredible. The support, the way we've played, the combination of both. It's been a dream come true really for all of us. And I include today as well. I just felt they didn't have to work as hard for their tries. We gave, it's almost like we got sucker punched a couple of times. I'm not taking anything away from them. They're a quality team, but the way we had to work for our scores and to sort of have, I suppose, the upper hand in a lot of parts of the game, and then to concede, the try that we did at the second half, but then to fight back again just shows the character of the team. They're an incredible bunch, really. So yeah, very, very proud to be part of it.
If you go out with a whimper, it's pretty hard to take, isn't it? We deserve a little bit more of ourselves than that, and we didn't, did we? When New Zealand put pressure on people and get the scoreboard ticking over, and it was 6-0, and obviously we give 3 penalties away at the start of the game that give them soft points there. And then they score next as well, and all of a sudden, we've seen time and time again with this team, the All Blacks, that is, just take the game away from people, and these guys, they kept on believing in themselves, and rightly so, because of the rugby that they're able to play under pressure. So I'm immensely proud. I'm immensely proud of absolutely everyone that's connected with Irish rugby, to be fair. The staff have been immense over the last 4 years. The players, not just in this squad, but the players that we've used in that 4-year cycle have been a joy to work with. And not just that, the connection with the fans and it's all. It seems like it's all one big family, So I'm unbelievably proud to be associated with it all. I think. The sad thing for us now is that for this group, it's probably the end. Obviously, it is for Johnny, and Keith Earls he's going to retire as well. So so things are going to change. Mick Kearney, our manager, is going to finish up as well. So over the next 24 hours, it's time to make sure that we. Get a smile back on our face as soon as we possibly can, and celebrate what has been some unbelievable careers and what they've done for Irish rugby. So it's important to us that.
Both of them spoke so well after.
Yeah, there seems to be a contingent of Irish people back at home who are delighted that Ireland are out of the World Cup, and I really don't understand it, because I get why some people find rugby a bit hard to take sometimes, but this group of Irish players have done the country proud over the course of a 4-year period. And I know it's probably harder to take in some ways, because they are better than that performance, and like they came into this tournament the world's number 1 team, and they got to 17 wins in a row against all the best teams in the world, and when it came to it, they weren't good enough. But they've also given the country some incredible moments at this tournament. They forged a connection to people from all over the island, from all walks of life, that we've been bumping into across Paris, around the world. And I don't think, I would have been fiercely critical of the team 4 years ago and in 2015, and I'm not tonight, because I'm analytical of it, and I can see what went wrong for them, and I think they left. They will be so gutted by it, because they know they're better than what they produced. But what they produced at the same time was a performance that was almost good enough to beat the All Blacks. And I think the All Blacks played. I think a lot of people underestimated how well the All Blacks played 4 years ago. I thought they were outstanding tonight. I thought Sam Cane went to a new level. I thought that was their final. Ireland have to look at things like the fact that they were playing against 14 men for 20 minutes and they won it 7-3. They didn't take their opportunities, and they're a good team at taking their opportunities. They got a little bit frazzled. I think when Sexton missed that kick at goal, he got frazzled for a couple of minutes ago.
The chip over.
Bad moments. At the same time, the bench comes on, makes an impact.
Huge impact.
Jimmy O'Brien, World Cup debut.
Joe McCarthy.
Jack Conan was magnificent,
yeah.
and he spoke really well down in the mix zone. And yet it just wasn't enough. And they're pissed off about it. Like, they really are. And it's not. It's pissed off at themselves. It's not at the ref. It's not at anything else. And that's what's going to be so hard for them to take, because they know it's probably the greatest Irish team we've ever seen. They've achieved things that other Irish team have achieved, even though they might not have had some of the names that we had. But they did themselves justice in so many ways out there. Like, they went toe-to-toe with the All Blacks and came down to a 37 final play. And yet they should never have been in that position, because if they'd taken their chances, they would have been ahead. They still haven't led in the bloody World Cup quarter-final since 1995. It's crazy.
I mean, even like that start, Cian. I mean, we spoke so much about the start. The All Blacks going 13-0 up after whatever it was, 18, 19 minutes. The signs were there.
Yeah, the signs were there. They were, but like I said at the start, you can't give a team like this a 13-0 head start, and this isn't a vintage All Blacks team, and we've been sort of consistently saying that across the pod. There's no point in now saying that this is an unbelievable team, but what we did see tonight was players like Rod said, Sam Cane, Shannon Frizzell, Ardy Surveyor, their back row. Beauden Barrett was awesome. Richie Mwanga. I mean, they'll be absolutely gutted, Ireland, with the try that the Will Jordan try that they conceded, a Joe Schmidt special off a line out. But I mean, how that gap appeared in the defence, that's the type of thing that Ireland have been doing to the opposition
Johnny
teams.
Sexton said, they didn't have to work as hard for their scores as Ireland did.
Exactly.
That would kill them, because they've been the best defensive team in the world, and yet when it came to the crunch, they had a complete malfunction. And look, Schmidt did his research.
And then I made this point during the week that I felt like it was going to be a battle of wits, that when like certain lineouts or certain positional scrums, that the Ireland defence were going to be almost second guessing, okay, what would Joe have done if we were in these positions? And that was always going to be the battle. And the fact that they carved Ireland open in the exact same way that Ireland carved teams open, where Richie Mwanga just went through a gap, and you're kind of going, how the hell is there a gap that big off first phase? And that is not Ireland like. That is something that will, like, we've been singing the praises of the Irish defence, which rightfully so, it's been brilliant over the tournament, but that was way too easy for a World Cup quarter final.
And like, without getting, like, I think that they deserve criticism for elements of that. And I think the coaching ticket, who've been superb over the last couple of years, you know, they have to look at, we've just been talking to Paul O'Connell, and I asked him about the lineouts. You'll be able to read what he had to say on Monday, but they have to review everything they did here forensically. It's going to be, you can't throw it in the bin like Kieran Crowley said about the Italy performance. This has to be the bedrock for another 4-year cycle, another build towards, and obviously they have to replace, and we'll have another podcast to discuss what happens next, because this team is done now. This World Cup is done. This magnificent journey that saw them beat the world champions and have all these brilliant moments, and the zombie stuff, and I mean, whatever song they played after New Zealand win, it's not a patch on zombie, but you know, the small band of Kiwi fans who were here for the players. You know, I think some of the stuff that happened last summer, maybe Peter O'Mahony might regret saying what he said about Tom Kane, you know, like.
But just on that, it doesn't undo everything that
Not
Ireland
at all.
have done.
No, absolutely
and
not.
what Rudd's point about the naysayers, I mean, you can already see it coming out, but like, I would just try and block all that kind of stuff out, because this was the most inevitable thing about Ireland going out. Regardless of the circumstances, you're going to have people saying they're chokers, they're bottlers.
It wasn't a choke, because they were 13-0 down, and they got themselves back into position, and they got themselves back into position again, and they just weren't good enough on the night. But that's not like, I think it's a slightly different one. It's probably the best quarter-final since 91. I think you're right, Cian. Like, it's what they've achieved stands on its own 2 feet. It's just there's this one thing that they still haven't knocked off, and that will live with them. And look, they have to take it. Like, people, I mean, Steve Hansen said it in that interview I did the other day. People called us jokers for years, and we probably were. You know, they got a horrible draw. If they were playing Wales or Argentina, they win this quarter-final, and they weren't good enough to beat the All Blacks. It wasn't that they weren't good enough to beat quarter-final. They played against one of the top 4 teams in the world, and they weren't good enough, and that's a really disappointing thing. But like, I don't see it as being a mental thing tonight. I think they got the performance wrong. It's not a mental choke. It's actually just they went out and they didn't live up to their own standards, and that's the real disappointment.
And the fact that Argentina were waiting in the semi-final, like, I would expect New Zealand to possibly blow Argentina away. We watched the game earlier, like, that this is not a vintage Argentinian side, and we had said it all along that the quarter-final was going to be more difficult, and now
absolutely.
you'd fully expect the All Blacks to sail into a final, and if it's been Ireland, it's a case of what might have been.
Yeah, what might have been.
Just, you know, I think we should touch on the fact that it's the end of the Sexton era, and you know, I know we've heard from him already, but I know you've written a piece on him, Cian. It's what a great career.
What a great
Irish international. You know, one of, if not the greatest player we've ever seen wear the green shirt. I think his body of work shouldn't be diminished by this. I think he played badly against New Zealand 4 years ago. I thought he had he was a pivotal figure in dragging the team back into that game tonight, and you know, should he have gone 80 minutes? I guess it's one of the things they look back on over the years. Did they give him competition? Did they give him a player? But like, how do you take Sexton out of the heat of that battle? He's still pulling the strings.
Absolutely.
At 37 phases. He'll have regrets about certain elements, the missed kick, but look, over the course of his career, he's done some service to this Ireland jersey. So has Keith Earlton behind the scenes. Mick Carney's been a big figure as well. It's just a shame we're not going to see them next week. You know, it's back to the URC.
I know, and the players spoke about that. They did not want Sexton to go out in this kind of way. They said it earlier tonight, and I think that just obviously makes it so much harder for them. Well, that is it from us. We are getting kicked out of the media centre here at the Stade de France. We're going to be back. We'll be back Monday morning, maybe. We're probably going home. We don't know. I don't have my return ticket yet. You're coming back Monday.
Don't mention it.
It's still a bit too sore.
We will be back.
I have to listen to the All Blacks now for 2 weeks.
We will be back with something anyway for you early next week. But for now, thanks for listening and watching.